Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining today's section. My name is CJ. If at the end of the section you think this is informative and helpful, please feel free to share it to your network, and our contact details are also shown on the screen in case you want to have further discussion with us. The essence of this video is to harmonize our understanding on what is expected from every expert in sourcing and procurement departments. Now, the scope of today's video is going to look at it holistically from a company perspective. How should this process be, and not how is this process based on the department purchasing, right? So for us to have a good understanding on how the sourcing and procurement process should be, we need to look at the whole supply chain, starting from the beginning till the end, right? Why I decided to make this video is that last 2 weeks I made some publication on my LinkedIn profile showing a circle of the activities involved in procurement processes, starting from plan order. So I think this post was merely to theoretically explain the concept of sourcing and procurement, but it's not that you must follow this in this sequence, because that's what we see in the reality. If you follow the operation of sourcing and procurement in this sequence that we're currently seeing in my screen, yeah. So if you follow in this sequence, you are going to have some delays, right? Why should you wait for a need to arise before you start asking for quotation, making contracts? So you need basically some time to make a supply evaluation, vendor selection, contract management. So the delay is already there. Yeah. From a company perspective, let's start from the scratch. Let's start from how does it work. The first is that the company defines a product. What do we want to produce? For instance, a bicycle, right? After this, the next thing is that the company defines what we call bill of material. Bill of material shows what components is needed for you to produce a bicycle. So these two types of material, one is a finished product, one is raw material, yeah, are registered in the system of this company, be it manual process, be it automated process with an ERP. At least these two material types are registered somewhere in the company data system, right? Now, the next thing the company will do is that they will say, okay, they will have a forecast. What do they want to achieve? Yeah? For instance, they say in 2027, we want to sell 1,000 bicycles, right? This is the hierarchical order of the concept of supply chain. Yeah. From this 1,000 orders, then which is registered in the system as a forecast. Forecast is one of the method of triggering, activating a need. Yeah. We also have other methods like sales order and also other methods. But let's focus on forecast. This 1,000 bicycles that we're going to produce in 2027 automatically tells me in procurement departments that I should get ready. And what does that mean? Get ready means I should get all my suppliers in 2026. At least by the end of 2026, I should have all the details, which supplier is going to supply what, at what condition, and other necessary information that is necessary, right? Now, after the company has defined their product, defined the bill of material, the next thing is that they have to make the timing. a company have to make a timing. How long does it take for us to produce one bicycle? And for you to make this timing, first, you divide the materials into what they call internal and external procurement materials. For those ones of internal procurement, we will not focus there today. We'll focus on external procurement because this is where it concerns to purchasing department. So in the external procurement, the company will now define how long does it take for us to purchase this item. Complete timing, delivery time, yeah? Then the company will now check what is our production time, what is our quality assessment time, what is our warehouse inbound into the warehouse, what is the commissioning time, how long does shipping department need to do the documentation, and how long do they need to deliver within and outside their region. These informations are also captured somewhere in the system. This is necessary because as a sales guy, if I go out to sell a bicycle to a customer, I should be able to know that today is 27th of February, that if customer places an order, the minimum period I can give is 6 weeks. I should have this information. Of course, the sales guys is not involved in the operation. So how do they have this information if these informations are not captured in the system? Now, the company has defined a product, defined the bill of material, and defined the timing. For company to define the timing, they need a strategic evaluation report from sourcing and procurement departments. What you guys do, or what we should do in sourcing and procurement department, is that once we have this forecast, we make a tender, we open up a bid for all the suppliers who can supply these materials. After receiving the feedback from all the suppliers, you now do the evaluation, supplier selection. Yeah. So you now say, okay, based on you do the supplier, vendor selection. You now say, based on all this information I've gathered, this is supplier A, this is supplier B, this is supplier C. This tells you what is the price from A, what is the price from B, what is the price from C. How long does A need? How long does B need? How long does C need? These informations are captured also into the system. The idea behind this is that whenever an order is placed, automatically you know when it's going to be delivered, right? Because it's an agreement that will be binding both on the vendor side and on your side. This is a second thing you need to have. And for you to have this evaluation, there are things we call order book or purchase info sets. Order book or purchase info set captures the delivery conditions, price, delivery condition of different suppliers. If in order book, you'll be able to see, okay, who can deliver this at what date, at what price, yeah? So beside order book and the purchase info sets, you also have a quoting system which can be configured, which can be activated in the system. The quoting system now tells the system, in case I have requests for 100 pieces, I want that 60% go to supplier A and 40% B. Yeah. So you now activate your quoting system if it's necessary. Yeah. Mind you, this video considered I'm using a small scale manufacturing company as a case study, right? So now you've configured or you've put all this data into the system or into Excel or into any data capturing tools you are using. Now, what happens in the reality, here's where the magic comes. You don't need to request for quotation. You don't need to make supply evaluation. You don't need to make a contract after the need has arisen, the real need. When I mean real need, I mean like a sales order, right? But you do these things when the forecast or when anticipated plan has been made on what you are going to deliver for next year. Now, by the end of 2026, you already have a binding contract with suppliers. You already know your suppliers. You already done the vendor selection. You don't need a request for quotation again. Yeah. So you now see that if a need arises in this circle, which I have here, one, you don't need purchase requisition. Yeah. Because this is a standard, because the order book that you have collected will internally be approved by all necessary bodies, all necessary approvals. Yeah, you be it head of a procurement department, be it the CFO or the CEO, will approve and now say, okay, this is our company order book. This is okay. What this means is that whenever a need arises, you don't need to go for an additional approval because this is a general approval, right? Now, if you have such general approval, this is how each automated system works. If you have a general approval for this order book, you now go to your ERP system and say, once a plan order for external material has been activated in the system, please automatically convert this plan order into plan requisition, right? The system does this at the background within some seconds, right? And you now tell the system for all purchase requisition with this material number, please automatically convert them to purchase order. Now you see that we have boycotted manual process of issuing a purchase requisition. We have boycotted manual process of requesting for quotation. We have boycotted manual process of receiving the quotation. We have boycotted manual process of evaluating the quotation, or not boycotting anyway, but because we have done it proactively. Yeah. Now, vendor selection is already done proactively. Contract management is already done proactively. So these 5 or 6 elements are already done before the need was activated. Now, the system will convert the need into purchase requisition and subsequently convert purchase requisition into a purchase order, right? Now you have your purchase order. The same way, you tell the system to automatically release all the purchase order with this material number. What the system does by release is that once the purchase order is released, if a quoting system is maintained, the system splits this purchase order according to the quoting system and send the purchase order to the selected vendors. If no quoting system is selected, the system checks on the background, is there any preferred vendor for this material? Or what is the source of supply that is maintained in the system? So in the system, you maintain the source of supply and say, okay, this is priority A, priority B, priority C. The system takes the first source of supply and send the purchase order. A situation whereby the source of supply cannot supply the quantity that is needed, the system automatically sends the maximum quantity to this source of supply and the remaining difference to the next source of supply. That's what happens in the background. To be able to control and check all these automated processes, you will now be able to go to the system and say, please, for all purchase order that we have not received the confirmation from the vendor, please send me a notification. By the way, if you have a solid binding agreement with the supplier, You don't even need to check for confirmation, because once you have a contract saying that from the day you receive our purchase order, you have 14 days to deliver. So what's the sense of checking the supplier? Because there's a binding agreement. However, if you want to check this, you can always activate it in the system and say, for all the purchase order that we generate and send to vendor, please, after 24 hours, send me a notification so that I can have a track of it. That's number one. And because we have all these details in the system, including the delivery dates, the sales guy here, before they will promise clients everything, they have the possibility to check in their system. If I need 500 bicycle, how long can I promise a customer? Yeah, because if you don't have this information, what happens in the reality is that, don't forget that the sales guys are paid bonus based on number of sales they realize in most cases, right? So they are motivated to sell. And with this motivation, they can even promise what is not realistic, right? Now, if you have these details in the system, the sales guy will check and say, okay, what is realistic is this. This is what I can promise a customer, right? Unless there is also some exceptions where you can use a premium service to make the whole process faster. But this is not the scope of this training. We're using the standard method. Now, having all this information and the purchase order has been sent to vendor, this is when you will now have your details to evaluate your vendor's performance, because now you agree with him, for instance, 14 days delivery period. You'll be able to check which day did I send you the PO, which day did you deliver the goods to us. These are what we call hard facts. So if you want to evaluate a vendor, which is a total different lesson, I'm going to make a video about vendor evaluation. Yeah. So you have what they call hard facts, quantitative details, things that could be quantitatively seen, like date of delivery, damages, stuff like this. Yeah. Price. Then you also have also qualitative details, what we call soft facts, the evaluation that is given to a vendor based on your experience with them qualitatively. Yeah. So when you now have all these details in your system and it's transparent, both the internal and the external stakeholders are they have this information, right? So now the vendor supplies and the inbound date is captured, the goods goes to production team, everybody's happy at the end of the day, right? But if the vendor does not supply, of course, you also record when the goods come in. These are things you use at the end of the day to now evaluate them. This is how it should proactively work, and not that we wait until a need arises before we start requesting for quotation, selecting vendor, evaluating contracts. You already lost the time. And the management of a company, the C-level, will not understand these processes, and they don't want to understand it. They expect you to do it in such a way that the best optimal result will be achieved. And the best optimal result is to look at the holistic supply chain and check which activity can I do before the need arises. Of course, there are some exceptions, and depending on your business model and the nature of your activity, we can have a detailed discussion about this to know exactly how to optimize your processes, right? So the conventional one I explained is a mini production, small scale industry, where they have everything as starting from forecast before the customer's orders come in. There are also some situations where you create a need with a customer's order. So these are things that we'll look into details, and we are open. We shared our email address here, and our phone number. In case you have comments, you have suggestions, you have your experience in the industry. We are more practical oriented. That's why we are cherish every practical comment that you can share with us. Let us also understand how it works in your company so that we can be able to have a direct one-on-one discussion and be able to minimize the differences between expectation of procurement officer from the departmental point of view and the expectation of the C-level management from the company point of view. Feel free to reach us, share your comments, share the video, tell us where you have more need for further discussions. Thank you very much and have a nice day. Thank you.